we're going to talk about the things that you have to have memorized. So just as a reminder for these, the Pythagorean theorem, remember, is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And that's based on having a right triangle where the hypotenuse opposite the right angle is c and the two legs are a and b. Now there are two special right triangles that we've dealt with. The first one is a 30, 60, 90. And on this one, opposite the 30-degree angle, our base side is going to be a 1. The hypotenuse is going to be a 2. And then opposite the 60-degree angle is going to be square root of 3. You have to memorize the base triangle and then use similar triangle proportions in order to solve the problem. Our next special right triangle is a 45, 45, 90. And on that triangle, the base triangle that you have to have memorized for this, where our little angles are 45 and it's isosceles. So our base sides are going to be the isosceles sides opposite the 45-degree angles. Those are each a 1. And then the hypotenuse is a square root of 2. You use the same thing where you do similar triangles with this base one to set up proportions to solve. Now our trig functions are based on if we've got a right triangle, because we've been using right triangles, and if we have this angle A, remember our sides we reference are the opposite side, opposite to that angle, the adjacent side, which is right next to it, but not the hypotenuse, and then the hypotenuse. So when we set those up, our trig functions, sine of angle A is going to equal the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Cosine of A is going to equal the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And then our tangent of A is going to equal the opposite side over the adjacent. And this is where we learn the SOHCAHTOA, which you have another video that you have an option to look at in Ed Puzzle that you can look to see and talks about SOHCAHTOA. Now using that, we do what are called angle of elevation and angle of depression problems. And just as a reminder, and I'll do an example of these a little bit later, angle of elevation is from looking straight out at the horizontal. You look up at something, and that is your angle of elevation. So from looking straight out, I'll turn to the perspective here, looking straight out, you look up, and that angle is your angle of elevation. On the other hand, angle of depression is from looking straight out on the horizontal, and you look down at something. Okay? And on that one, so from looking straight out at something, you look down, usually that angle is not the one we use. So just as an example, if I do a problem where somebody's standing on a cliff and they look down at something down below, you look at the straight horizontal, looking down at something. Let's say they look at an angle of 20 degrees. Okay, the angle, notice, goes in this spot, not here. So this angle in the triangle that we have, this angle here is going to be 90 minus that, the complement of it, which is 70 degrees. And that's probably the angle we'll use in the problem. So that if we want to know how high this this cliff is, we call that x. And we know how far this object is from the base of the cliff, so let's say that that's 50 feet. Then what we'd set up for our trig functions to do this problem is we'd say we got 70 degrees, that's the opposite side, and there's the adjacent. So we would say tangent of 70 degrees equals the opposite side, which is 50, over the adjacent side, which is x. And then just a reminder, you multiply by x on both sides to get that x out of the denominator. You then divide by tangent of 70 on both sides. So this would be x equals 50 over tangent of 70. And then you would do that on your calculator to figure out what that value is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and this will be our first video just on kind of review notes and checking over your homework. I'm going to set up a second video where I'll actually do some problems.